and a lot of disease prevention and treatment. And really my journey into nutrition as medicine, or focusing more on nutrition, began about 8 years ago. My fourth baby was born. I was nursing him. I was working full-time in our lovely Culpeper ER, and I was homeschooling my other 3 children. And in the midst of all of that, my body wasn't getting everything it needed. So I ended up having strep 9 times in 1 year. And I did what I knew to do, and I took antibiotics, and I'd get better for a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, and then end up sick all over again. And so with that, I had friends asking me when I was going to get my tonsils out, and I did not plan on doing that. And a good friend of mine who I homeschooled with recommended some fruit and vegetable supplements as a way to help support or boost my immune system. And I had gotten some of the gummies for my kids because, you know, they're like 4 and 5, 6. They're not having necessarily the best diet. They're not always choosing raw broccoli over fruit snacks. So they have these wonderful gummies that have 20 servings of fruits and vegetables. My kids loved them, and I felt good that they were getting some basic nutrition, some good nutrition. But I wasn't taking them. And so around about the 9th time I got strep, she asked me if I was taking them, and I admitted that they were collecting dust in my cabinet. And so she recommended I try them to see if it would help support my immune system. The 9th time I got strep, I actually didn't start antibiotics right away, and I decided to go big or go home, so I took them 3 times a day instead of just once. I was getting 90 servings of fruits and vegetables in my body every day. And after 3 days, all of my symptoms went away. I think I stayed tripled up for about a week, and then after that week, I went down to taking regular daily doses, and I stopped getting sick. And so kind of light bulbs started going off in my mind, like, how does that work? I just healed my body from something that is bacterial with fruits and vegetables. And so I kind of started diving more into the idea of using food as medicine. And a few years ago, Hippocrates said, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." And even Edison, years later, replicated a saying similar to that we really can use nutrition, we can use food as sources of medicine in our body, for our body. He also said all disease begins in the gut. And before we get going, I'll let you know my objectives today are to really understand the link between nutrition and mental wellness, how food choices and behaviors impact mental wellness, and then to identify some nutritional strategies or ways that we can enhance mental health through nutrition. So I don't know if you've ever heard that the gut is the second brain, or that the health of the brain begins in the gut. But basically, your gut and your brain have a highway of communication to one another, and hormones that directly influence how hungry you are or what you're craving. We were talking about that in the last talk, craving sugar or craving different things in dementia, as well as even just the breakdown of food and how our adrenals and stress hormones work, all start with the health of the gut. So the small intestines, of course, is this really long tube, but inside that tube there's a single cell of layers that have little finger-like projections called villi. And these villi are responsible for absorbing all of our nutrients and getting them into the bloodstream, which then carries it to the rest of the body. And in our large intestines, about 90% of our nutrients are already absorbed by the time they get to our large intestines, but you've got that added 10% of absorption. You're absorbing a lot of water and minerals through your large intestines. And then in your intestines, over 500 species of bacteria are growing and developing, which helps with the breakdown of food and the absorption of nutrients. So one thing that we talk about a lot in integrative health is leaky gut. It's kind of a generic term that can mean a lot of things, or it can impact a lot of things in the body. But if you look at the diagram, you can see there on the left, I don't know if this has a pointer. Oh, it does. So you can see here, you've got some nice healthy cells. There's really tight junctions here. They look happy. You've got your nutrients here that are kind of passing along through, and your body's getting absorption down into your bloodstream. But what can happen over time because of poor diet, disease and illness, even stressful trauma in your life, you can get leaky gut, and these cells start getting puffy and red and irritated, and you get all this space in between. So pathogens like bacteria and viruses and parasites and other things that are in your gut from the food that you eat starts leaking down into your blood vessels and into your bloodstream, and then can start settling in different places of the body and creating all manner of disease processes and directly affect the brain. So the problem with leaky gut is that the symptoms can be really nebulous. You can have indigestion, you can have gas and bloating, or brain fog, low energy, sometimes even rashes that you don't know where they came from. And a lot of times you go to the doctor and get checked and like, oh, that's normal, take some Tums, it'll get better. But the end result of this, if you've got that leaky gut going on, is you can get Crohn's or colitis directly, gut related, but even things like hypothyroidism, lupus, multiple sclerosis, and rheumatoid arthritis and other arthritises and allergies, whether it's seasonal allergies or food allergies. And then in mental illness, depression, anxiety, ADHD, and even dementia can all have a source. Thank you, sir. Ooh, you can hear me? Can you hear me back there? All right. So, oh, sorry. Turn me down. Too loud. I'm talking too loud. Okay. So even these things that we don't really think of necessarily as gut related could potentially have their source in a really unhealthy gut that's allowing pathogens to leach into our system and maybe even affect the brain directly, and secondarily, when your gut is all inflamed like that, it can't absorb the nutrients that your body does need very well. So you get the bad stuff and not enough of the good stuff, and it's a recipe for disaster. So one of the things that you can do to protect your gut is something called pre and probiotics. So prebiotics are really like the fertilizer for good bacteria. They help feed that good bacteria, and the more colorful your plate is, the more variety you have in your diet, the more plentiful and various is going to be your bacteria. And here's some examples of some fruits and vegetables that are high in prebiotics and can feed your gut healthy stuff. I know this is really tiny writing here, but these are neurotransmitters right along here in your brain. And so acetylcholine here, deficiencies of that can lead to memory and imagination deterioration, fewer dreams, increased confusion, forgetfulness, and disorganization. And foods that can directly impact that are sugar and fried foods and junk food, refined stuff, and then your caffeine and alcohol. The interesting thing about this, and whether it's dementia or things like cancer, we tend to crave simple carbs and sugars, and they're the very things that actually progress the disease further. Or it's almost like the disease is causing you to crave the things that feed it, and can lead to further progression. So in order to help improve acetylcholine, oh, I keep hitting the wrong button, I'm sorry. Then you've got really mostly eggs and fish, seafood that helps elevate acetylcholine. Serotonin, which we think of a lot in relation to depression, the deficiency of that can cause sleeping difficulty or low mood, feeling disconnected with yourself or with life, lacking joy. Alcohol has a direct effect on serotonin, and later we'll talk about some micronutrients that can impact that. And again, fish, fruit, eggs, whole grains, avocado, these all can help boost serotonin levels in your brain and in your bloodstream. Dopamine causes you to feel lethargic, like no motivation, you lack energy, no oomph and get up and go, and then you start craving stimulants to give you that kind of external, I can do this, and motivation. And so caffeine and sugar are common foods that will cause your dopamine to actually drop. And again, fruits, vegetables, well-balanced diet, things high in vitamin C will all help increase dopamine. And finally, GABA GABA is more that restless, you can't relax, you feel anxious and on edge, nervous, and self-critical even. The things that can impact that directly are, again, sugar, alcohol. Are you noticing a theme that can impact the neurotransmitters directly in your brain? And again, on the flip side, if you want to feed that, if you want to increase that and improve that, then you've got your dark green vegetables, seeds and nuts, even potatoes, bananas, and eggs can all help bring that up. There's a field of medicine that is really emerging right now called nutritional neuroscience, or the study of nutrition on human cognition, behavior, emotions, and mental health. So we once thought that mental health was kind of its own thing. It was emotional, it was biochemical, and food didn't really have anything to do with it. But in a lot of studies that have come out lately, we're finding a direct correlation to diet and the severity and duration of depression. So good food equals a good mood. Not all of the time and not across the board, and we all have life circumstances. There's so many factors, but it can make a huge impact. So we're going to talk a little bit about carbohydrates, and before I do, I want to differentiate between simple carbs and complex carbs. I always talk to my patients about that breakdown because they all fit under the category of carbs, and they all turn to sugar in your body. And our cells use sugar. Our cells require sugar. It's part of the energy source for your cell and for it to be able to do its job. But the difference is, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, is that simple carbs cause a significant spike in your blood sugar and then it crashes down, whereas your complex carbs are those things that are full of fiber, and the fiber causes your body to break down food slowly over time, and so the sugar is burned off as you're breaking down the fiber, and it's not going to cause that spike in sugar in your body. And so as this says, the sugar that, or the carbohydrates release insulin from the pancreas into the body, and then the insulin helps sugar get into your cells so that it can be used for energy, and it also then triggers entry of tryptophan into the brain. So tryptophan directly affects some of those neurotransmitters we were talking about earlier, and a lot of fresh vegetables as well as eggs and poultry and beans and legumes can impact or cause tryptophan to increase. And as you see here, so tryptophan is right at the top of this chain. Tryptophan converts into 5-HTP, and 5-HTP converts to serotonin. And serotonin is what helps decrease depression and feelings of sadness and lethargy. But there's all these things, gut and heart health problems, sleep problems, cravings for simple carbs, fibromyalgia, and other pain conditions that can block serotonin in the body and even block melatonin, which kind of goes back to that sleep issue. And then you see these things here in green, and these are micronutrients, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But if these micronutrients are low, then your conversion of tryptophan to 5-HTP and 5-HTP to serotonin are going to be hampered, and so you're not going to get as much of the serotonin, even though you may have plenty of tryptophan. So there's been some research on carbohydrates in mental health specifically, and diets low in carbs, which we have a lot of those being recommended nowadays, whether it's just low carb or keto or even carnivore. But what happens when you eat really low carb is the chemicals in your brain can't function as well, and you get this decrease in serotonin and tryptophan. And so we'll talk a little bit here about that the carbs, the difference in carbs, and that's referred to as glycemic index. And so the glycemic index is how high does it make your sugar? Whether it's broccoli or Skittles, how high is my sugar going to go after I eat those things? And how does that impact the brain and your mood over time? So whereas simple carbs like your sweets and sugars are going to give you an elevation for a short bit, it's going to crash, and then you're going to end up feeling worse off than you did when you started. So here's a little graphic that shows when you have these simple carbs here, you get this nice spike, this spike in blood sugar. And in about half an hour, 45 minutes, you get this high rise of blood sugar. And then it starts crashing, and by 2 hours you're down low here, lower than you were before. You're craving things, you may feel irritable or grumpy, and your body's out of that quick fuel that you gave it. When you eat these complex carbs, you get a nice rise in blood sugar, which is important, but then it extends and it levels off here and gives you a steady state of glucose and fiber, and your body's then able to absorb the nutrients that are rich in all of these foods here. Here's another kind of graphic that shows that, this zone of willpower, because you're craving. If you're on this yo-yo here of simple carbs, then you drop down in here and your body starts craving and saying, help, I need more sugar. And so then you eat something and you spike back up and are on this yo-yo of energy and cravings all day long. Whereas when you have those high fiber foods, you have a lower glycemic index and you don't get as hungry, you don't crave things as much, your mood is more stable. And the recommendation based on a lot of research is that you should have about 120 grams of carbs. Most low carb diets or keto diets recommend that you have less than 30. So the next macronutrient we're going to talk about are proteins. So proteins are made up of a lot of amino acids, and they're the building blocks for your cells and for life. They're really important. We think most of the time of meat products or animal products when we talk about protein. And your body can make or manufacture a lot of proteins, but there are some that it cannot. And this is a graphic, I know that's really small, but just to give you an idea, there's a lot of plant-based proteins that you can get as well. Beans and legumes are one of the highest sources of protein. We've got quinoa over here, soy products, which have gotten a bad rap over the years, but don't let them fool you. Soy is the only plant-based protein that has all of the amino acids in one product. And it actually has been studied in preventing cancer, lowering risk of cancer, helping with recovery of cancer, as well as a lot of other disease processes, balancing hormones and things like that. Even things like broccoli and kale have proteins in them. So the proteins directly affect your neurotransmitters in the brain. They're made from those amino acids. Dopamine is directly made from tyrosine, and serotonin is made from tryptophan, as we saw earlier. And so if you lack those two things, then your transmitters aren't going to work as well. Your brain's not going to be firing on all cylinders, and you're going to end up either with low mood or aggression. And so one of the things that I think is really important, especially since we're talking a lot about dementia today, and it's so hard and heartbreaking, I know, as a caregiver, when you're trying to pour yourself out. Are we trading? Okay. All right. To try to combat some of those, especially the aggression that can happen in the elderly. And so you might want to consider trying to increase foods and nutrition that has these amino acids in it to lower aggression. The way that affects, so these are neurotransmitters in the brain. So these are neurons. Here's one neuron, and it's connecting to this one. And you can see this kind of small junction here where this one releases these neurotransmitters and amino acids, and it connects in here, and it's all doing its job nicely. What can happen, though, when you have a high saturated fat diet or low in fruits and vegetables, or low in the necessary amino acids, see how wide that gap is there? The communication, all of these, the serotonin and all of these other hormones here aren't able to connect quite as well, and you end up getting less nutrients absorbed, and then the connection, the neurotransmitters in your brain can't communicate as well, and learning and memory are directly affected. One thing that significantly impacts, I'm sure you all have heard of fatty acids or omega-3s. A lot of times we think of fish oil, but you also have nuts and seeds that are really high in multiple omegas. And so 50% of your gray matter is made up of these fatty acids. And I heard a pediatrician speak maybe 3 or 4 years ago, And he was talking about how dementia is prevented even up to the third and fourth generation in the womb. Taking omegas, especially in the third trimester and through the first year of life when the baby's brain is tripling in size, they've done some fMRI studies that look at the neurotransmitters and how many there are in the brain, and there's exponentially more neurotransmitters and connections available in the brain of a baby who has had a lot of omegas from the mom in the womb. And there are studies that show that the nutrition of the mom affects down to the third or fourth generation of your family. Yay, yeah. So you can make a huge impact there. So my journey with omegas, I take this one in particular because it's plant-based, and they found that, so one of the concerns, especially in the integrative world with fish oil, is that they're finding a lot of plastics and heavy metals in fish, which get absorbed directly into our bodies and can create problems for us, toxins for us. And so this company found that the seaweed or the kelp that the fish eat are actually what gives them the omegas, and so they kind of cut out what they call the middle fish and go right to the kelp and the seaweed to give the omegas. So I started taking omegas 4 years ago, and I took it because I was looking at research that said it was good for your brain, and I thought, what homeschool mom and provider can't use help there? So I started taking it, and I don't know that I felt necessarily much smarter, but the two things, well, maybe three things that I did notice. The first one was 2 weeks into taking this, I had developed in my late 30s some increased PMS symptoms. Sorry, guys. And it was really affecting me about 3 days before my cycle, and then I'd feel miserable for a few days. I had a cycle 2 weeks after I started these, and I didn't have any of those symptoms. So much so that I actually stopped and thought, oh, I haven't felt crazy. What's happening? What's different? And this was the only thing that was different. And I can tell you it's made a direct impact on my mood and stability, as well as inflammation during that time. I also noticed that I started sleeping better. And I was up multiple times through the night and have a hard time falling back to sleep, and it probably took me an hour or two just to fall asleep at night. And at some point after taking this, I started going right to sleep. I'd sleep through the night. So it's made a huge impact. And I also noticed, because there's lots and lots of studies on ADHD and anxiety in relation to omegas. And a lot of times patients relate it to like your threshold being up here with anxiety and feeling overwhelmed, and it kind of brings it here where you can handle life a little bit better and cope a little bit better.
What's the name of the product?
This is from Juice Plus. It's omega, and it has all 5 of the known omegas. So it has 3, 5, 6, 7, and 9. It's the only product that I've ever seen that had all 5 of those in it, and they are in very scientifically balanced proportions to one another.
Do you sell those?
We do have them available, and I have at the end of this presentation, I have a few supplements based on what I'm sharing with you that I recommend, and so I'll have little links or information for that. So when that happened in my body just 2 weeks after taking omegas, I started doing more research into what exactly do omegas do. And I won't spend a lot of time on this, but you see eye health, cardiovascular health, prenatal health, emotional wellness, inflammation, bone health, joint health, and like it does everything. Omegas impact so much of the body, not just brain and cognition, or what I always thought of as just liver and cholesterol health. The other thing that's really interesting, and I'm really passionate about this, and cardiologists hate me for it, but especially in the elderly, there's studies, really important studies, that have found that taking cholesterol medicine and lowering your plasma cholesterol really low, below 100, but especially below 70, has a direct impact on depression and also on memory and cognition. Because I relate to omegas as like the lubricant. So if you didn't have oil in your car, it would start grinding and eventually not run at all. And omegas are like that. They're the lubricant that help those neurotransmitters communicate better. They're the oil for your brain. And if you don't have adequate supply of that, then those neurotransmitters aren't going to be connecting as well. How am I doing on time? Am I supposed to be done right now?
No, you've got about 10 more minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes. Dark chocolate on anxiety, depression, and it helps with quality of life and depressive symptoms. So there you have it. Water. I have a patient who right now is in Dogwood because she lived at home alone. She fell. She was on the floor overnight. She broke her hip. And when I went to visit her last week, she said, "Tell all of your patients not to get dehydrated." It has severely affected her brain, her cognition, and of course her balance and steadiness and dizziness. And so hydration is so important. If you look at this, you've got a normal brain, hydrated brain right here, and you've got a dehydrated brain right here. And you can see how there's all this extra space in here. Your neurotransmitters aren't able to communicate well. It has a significant effect on the brain, as well as different parts of your body. I won't go into this much, but hydration affects every area of your body and can directly affect your mood. Look at this. Anger could be because of dehydration, depression, anxiety, mood swings, fatigue, headaches, confusion, inattention, brain fog, decreased cognitive skills, affects memory, weak, dizzy, and lightheaded, sleep issues. I need to drink more water. And 73% of your brain is water, so it only takes 2% less of that to get dehydrated and to start affecting your memory, attention, and cognitive skills. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this because I don't have a lot of time, but we've talked a little bit about processed foods and how processed foods spike your sugar, and there's a direct correlation to processed foods and depression. Instead, choose antioxidants. Those are your fruits and vegetables, your nuts, and even some oils, minus the margarine. Skip the margarine. But these can lower inflammation in the body, feed those neurotransmitters, and give you what's called micronutrients. So micronutrients, I love this rainbow of colors because it comes from the rainbow of fruits and vegetables and nutrients that we can eat. And all of the rainbow of colors have different vitamins and nutrients that directly feed our cells. So if we're looking at the brain, we've got the omega-3s, B12, D, E, C, a lot of B vitamins, and then you've got your iron and magnesium and selenium. These here directly affecting your endocrine system, like your adrenals and your thyroid and pituitary. The neurotransmitters. When I tell people like with cognitive issues or any type of mental health issues, my top maybe 4 things that I want to check are your B6, your omegas, your B12, and your folic acid or B9. Those are so significant in your neurotransmitters working well, and I do supplement patients with that regularly when they're low. That just shows you all the beautiful colors. I will not go through all of this except just to say, so these are your B vitamins. These are all those micronutrients that can affect mood and depression, anxiety, poor concentration. And across here, whole grains and vegetables, whole grains, vegetables, whole grains, vegetables, some meat and dairy, fresh fruit, direct impact. Again, magnesium, selenium, and zinc. Low zinc can cause confusion. It's not something we traditionally check in the doctor's office. Selenium, which is not so much a problem here, but more in Europe, and magnesium. You know, we think in these symptoms, but we don't often correlate them to, like, maybe I've got a deficiency in zinc, and that could make a huge difference in my loss of appetite or in the confusion that I'm seeing. And seeds and nuts, fish are really good for that. So my goal or my hope for this is really just to help you, maybe some light bulbs come in your minds of, oh, well, there could be other things going on that we could support our own bodies or those that we're caring for and make their quality of life a little bit better. So not only is eating what you put into your body beneficial, but how you eat can also be really impactful. Sitting down with people, not rushing around and just like eating on the go like I do too often. Take time to eat. Notice what you're eating. Chew slowly. Be mindful. Stop before you're stuffed. and enjoy culture and food traditions within your family. Enjoy meals with others. Studies have shown that when you enjoy meals with other people, it actually increases the levels of nutrients you're able to absorb from the food that you're eating. Mindful eating, I talked a little bit about that. Eating for health and well-being. So much of the time we eat for cravings or we eat for convenience. And I would encourage you to eat the things that are nutrient dense. Eat for your body's health, for well-being, and not just for convenience or because you have to. So what can we do? Take longer to eat, fulfill hunger, and provide those things that are high in fiber for lasting energy. Get beans and legumes into your diet, and a lot of fruits and vegetables. This, I apologize, I know this is tiny, but these are fruits and vegetables here, and this tiny list is all the different things that it does throughout your body to help heal, repair, and feed your cells the nutrients that it needs. I told you a little bit about this. This is what I actually took when I had strep, these three right here. So this is like fruits and vegetables, 20 servings of fruits and vegetables and some antioxidants, and it's the most researched nutritional product in the world. So I have added that to my diet. It has all of these different fruits and vegetables, so regardless of what my diet is for the day, I know I'm at least getting 30 servings of fruits and vegetables of all the colors of the rainbow to feed my pre and probiotics in my brain and cells throughout my body. They do have a study that was done directly on cognitive functioning, so they had before and after testing on different cognitive processes, working memory, selective attention, processing speed, and executive function, and found that after 2 weeks of having the capsules, their working memory and all of these functions considerably increased. And this was a double-blind placebo-controlled study that was done at a hospital or university in Spain. Here's some supplements. We talked about leaky gut. Amy Meyer's Leaky Gut Revive. I don't get anything from promoting her stuff, but she has some really good stuff. I use her vitamin D a lot because it has really good absorption and is the best that I've found for D3K2. But her leaky gut I use a lot to repair that intestinal lining and to help improve absorption. So I use that product a lot. Integrative Therapeutics is really good because they have enough B6. Most B complexes don't have enough B6 to be really effective. And so I like that because it's also methylated, so if you know anything about that, it helps with increased absorption for the neurotransmitters. And then the Juice Plus is the one that I take. When it made a big difference in my health, I did sign on with this company and do some work for them as well. So thank you for listening. I love this little slide here. Not that it supports what I just said, but it says, first the onion made me cry, now the pepper is yelling at me, eating vegetables is just too emotionally draining. I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'm happy to answer a few if we do. Anybody do? Yeah?
I just want to mention something. Pharmaceuticals will deplete all the B vitamins in the body as well as the CoQ10. So that's why supplementation is really, really important for people that are taking pharmaceuticals.
Yes, and they'll definitely also affect the enzymes in your gut and the amount of probiotics that are in your gut too. Yes, ma'am. I did bring some cards. That have some information. I didn't bring any other pamphlets than that right now. I will say in January, and I don't have a date set yet, but I just went to several, one in Germany and one down in Florida, integrative cancer conferences, and we do some cancer treatment in our office. And I will be doing probably a 2-hour education and Q&A for people on what options are available to treat and heal cancer. Yes, ma'am.
Can you put the slide back on, please, that had all of the different sources?
That one?
Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
You've had with the different things that are the benefits of different foods. Where can I get that to see that or to share that?
We have the slides here, so I think if you email or if you get my card and email me, I'm happy to send you my slides and you'll be able to see that in more detail. Sure.